Hello, my name is Alexandra Corrade, and I'm an early child education business coach. In today's video, we'll discuss how to document expenses and prepare for monitoring for the Texas Workforce Commission's Child Care Relief Fund 2022. In today's video, we'll answer the following questions. How do I document my expenses? What should I expect if I am selected for monitoring? And how can I get help? To start, a selected group of child care providers will be required to participate in a TWC monitoring process, during which expenditures will be reviewed to verify that funds were spent on allowable expenses. Whether you are selected for monitoring or not, child care programs are required to maintain records for 3 years after the relief fund ends. This includes receipts, invoices, and other documentation that supports how all funds were expended. Let's start with how you document your expenses. When you gather your documentation, how do you make sure that you have everything you need? Let's follow this simple 3-step process. First, figure out your past expenses. Go month by month through your records, beginning September 1st, 2021, to review receipts, bills, payments, and bank statements. Second, find and keep your receipts. Set up a system to properly document all past and future expenses. You must keep all your receipts for costs covered by the award. Third, create a backup. A digital backup of your receipts and proofs of payment will be helpful. To do this, you can take pictures or scan your documentation. Remember, you need to keep your receipts for 3 years. Let's delve a little deeper into each of these 3 steps. When you figure out your past expenses, make sure that you look for all types of receipts and documentation of payment. Month by month, look for your receipts, look at your credit card bills, look at your app-based payment systems such as Venmo, Zelle, and PayPal, bank statements and canceled checks, and third-party payroll systems. Make sure you look for common expenses. Start with your rent or mortgage and insurance, utility costs, facilities maintenance, payroll, employment and personnel costs, PPE, cleaning supplies and cleaning services, classroom and office expenses, and other goods and services. Here's a special note for home-based providers. As a home-based provider, some of your expenses are both personal and business-related. For instance, if your program operates out of your personal home, a portion of eligible home costs can count as a business expense. Similarly, if you use a phone for both personal and business purposes, a portion of your phone bill can be counted as business use. There are some easy methods to determine how much of shared personal and business costs can be reimbursed through the Child Care Relief Fund. First, let's start with the business use of phone. For phones, cell phones, or home lines, you can determine what percentage of use was for business by looking at your bill and adding up the number of call minutes that were used for business purposes. Keep in mind, this should only be for the business owners or employees part of the bill. For example, Novelette looks back at her phone bill from last month and sees that it was $150. She sees that she made 30 calls that totaled 200 minutes, and that 20 of those 30 calls were for business-related purposes, and that those 20 calls totaled 120 minutes. If she divides her business-related phone call minutes, 120, by her total call minutes, 200, she gets 60%. Novelette can then multiply her total bill of $150 by 60% to determine her business use of phone. 60% of $150 is $90. So Novelette can report $90 of her phone bill from this month for the CCRF. Now, for business use of home. For home-based providers, if you regularly use your home for business and you are licensed or registered, you can be reimbursed for the cost of your home and other related expenses that you typically claim on your federal tax returns. Home-based providers can determine the business use of their home using the time-space calculation. This will help you figure out the percentage of your rent, mortgage, insurance, and utility costs that can be covered by relief funding. For help determining your time-space percentage, see the time-space calculation guide or request a call with one of our business coaches. Now that you have a clear picture of your expenses, set aside receipts for expenses that are allowable under the 2022 Child Care Relief Fund, and we'll get more into that in the next slide. Keep more than your funding amount allows in case some expenses are found ineligible by the TWC monitoring team. Be sure to set up a system to properly document all the costs that you have gathered since September 1st, 2021, as well as any future costs incurred by May 31st, 2023. Ensure that all your receipts or other proofs of payment show that you paid the expense, what you paid for, unless it is very clear, such as a bill from your electric company, the amount you paid, the date you paid it, and a description of the item purchased or service received. Common examples of receipts that you may be collecting include itemized receipts from stores, payment confirmation from the electric company or a canceled check, or a summary report from your payroll company. A pro tip is to search for your larger allowable expenses first. This can help you to streamline this process of collecting your receipts because larger expenses like rent or payroll will take less time to use up funding than finding multiple individual receipts for smaller expenses, such as classroom supplies. Allowable expenses with the 2022 round of child care relief funding include personnel costs, one-time wage supplements for staff, rent, mortgage, and utilities, PPE, cleaning supplies, and other supplies needed to promote health and safety practices, mental health supports for children and employees, parent tuition or co-pays, and there are some other expenses as well that are allowable, which we'll get into later in this presentation, and providers will need to describe how they used funds that don't fit into these categories. It is important to know you cannot claim expenses already paid for by the Paycheck Protection Program, the Employee Retention Tax Credit, the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act, or funds from any other stimulus or relief funding program. Once you have all your receipts and documentation, do make sure you create a backup. Store your documents of your expenses in a secure location. Consider backing up your receipts digitally by taking pictures of them with your cell phone or scanning them into your computer, just in case something happens to your original hard copies. And make sure you save photocopies in a secondary location. If you need any more assistance with documenting your expenses, feel free to book a free call with a business coach at childcare.texas.gov. You might be wondering, what should you expect if you are selected for monitoring? Here's a simple breakdown of the monitoring process, and once again, we'll go into each of these in more depth. First, you'll be notified if you're selected for monitoring because you'll receive an engagement letter from TWC, which will give instructions on how and where to submit your expenses. When you submit your expenses, you'll take your gathered receipts and submit them to TWC within 15 days of the creation of the engagement letter. TWC will then determine if each of your costs is allowable, adequately documented, and spent during the proper time period, which is September 1st, 2021 through May 23rd, 2023. Your TWC monitor will then put together a report of their findings and discuss this final report with you. If you are selected for monitoring, you will first receive an engagement letter which informs you that you have been selected and gives you instructions on how and where to submit your expenses. You will also receive, if you are selected, a document request list, which outlines categories of receipts requested, as well as instructions to submit documentation by mail or through the online system, SharePoint. The funding categories within which you will submit expenses are those included here. They include salaries and/or personnel costs, utilities, rent or mortgage monthly payments, costs associated with cleaning or sanitation, personal protective equipment, PPE, maintenance, food, supplies that don't include cleaning supplies, insurance costs, and there's a category for miscellaneous expenses. If a document submitted does not match any of the listed categories, but it is still an eligible expense under the program, you can categorize this receipt under miscellaneous. Now, when you go to submit expenses, you can submit your expenses online through SharePoint. Once you are granted access to the system, you will find individual folders set up for you for each category listed in the document review list. You will upload all of your receipts for each category into the appropriate folder. Make sure that all of your receipts in each category equal the total amount for the category, and that all category totals equal your funding amount. Be sure to include your completed document requests list in your uploads. If you're unable to submit your documentation online, TWC does allow submission through the mail, though TWC requests that documentation be postmarked within 15 days of the creation of your engagement letter. It is a good idea to label each receipt with the category name and ensure the amount you requested reimbursement for is clearly listed. Be sure to send copies of your documentation and keep the originals somewhere safe in case your documents are lost in the mail. You should also include a completed document review list with your submission, with a list of category totals and documentation total. We suggest sending documents by certified mail with a tracking number. Once TWC has received your documentation, they will review your expenses to ensure that each expense is allowable, adequately documented, and incurred during the proper time period, which is September 1st, 2021 through May 31st, 2023. If an expense is allowable, it means it is necessary to maintain or resume operations of your program, including fixed costs and increased operating expenses. For something to be adequately documented, the documentation must clearly show who you paid, how much you paid, when you paid it, and what you paid for, and that you paid for the expense. TWC may reach out to you for more information about your expenses or documentation during this process if they have any questions as to whether your expenses were allowable, adequately documented, or incurred between the appropriate time period, September 1st, 2021 through May 31st, 2023. Finally, your TWC monitor will compose a final report. In some cases, TWC may find that some of your expenses are ineligible for reimbursement through the relief fund. We recommend gathering more receipts than you will need, just in case some of your costs are not allowed. You can register to meet with a coach to help you to identify and document your costs. For more information on monitoring assistance, please see the full Documenting Expenses and Preparing for Monitoring guide, available at childcare.texas.gov. If you're wondering how you can get help, there are resources available for you. Again, the Documenting Expenses and Preparing for Monitoring guide is available at childcare.texas.gov. You can also prepare with your business coach, who can help with monitoring assistance and provide you with links to help and other resources in English and Spanish. You can register for no-cost business coaching at childcare.texas.gov. And for more updates on the 2022 Child Care Relief Funds, visit childcare.texas.gov/CCRF 2022 update. Best of luck as you continue to gather your documents and prepare to apply for the 2022 CCRF.